Olivia Hartman never thought she'd hear his name again. Not after the divorce, not after the years of silence that had carved a careful protective wall around her heart. And yet, here it was, Ethan Blake, the man who had once promised forever, was suddenly back in her city, back in the world she had rebuilt without him. She had no desire for a reunion, no interest in stirring up old wounds, but fate has a way of bending the rules. Across town, her son, Noah, balanced his school responsibilities with part-time jobs, unaware of the secret that had shaped the woman he called Mom into the resilient force she had become. He was 18 now, tall, determined, and smart in a way that reminded Olivia of someone she once knew too well. The truth of his father was a story she had kept hidden for years, a story locked away to protect both herself and her son from the chaos of the past. And yet, as Olivia sipped her coffee in the quiet corner of the cafe she favored, she couldn't ignore the news floating through her phone. Ethan Blake had returned, and with him, whispers of his growing empire, his wealth, his charm, and his relentless curiosity about the lives of those he had once left behind. Olivia's chest tightened, not with fear, but with the faint stirrings of something she thought she had buried. Curiosity, maybe hope, maybe the faintest hint of what she once called love. She didn't know it yet, but the world she had carefully built for herself and Noah was about to collide with the past in ways she could never predict. Some secrets, it seems, refused to stay hidden forever. Noah had never expected the email to arrive that morning. A sleek, professional message from Blake Enterprises, offering him a position as an assistant to one of the company's top executives. He blinked at the screen, heart racing, unsure if it was real. The thought of working in such a prestigious environment both excited and intimidated him. Yet something inside nudged him forward. This was an opportunity he couldn't pass up. He called Olivia immediately, and she listened quietly, pride swelling in her chest. She had raised him to be confident, capable, and careful, but she felt a flicker of apprehension she couldn't quite explain. There was something about this particular job that felt bigger than just a career move. On his first day, Noah walked into the sleek office building, wide-eyed at the polished marble floors and the buzz of professionals moving with purpose. He didn't know it yet, but the man he would be assisting, the CEO himself, was none other than Ethan Blake, the man who had once owned his mother's heart. Ethan, reviewing files in his corner office, glanced up at the new assistant and felt a strange, familiar pull. Something in Noah's posture, in the way he carried himself, sparked a memory he couldn't place. Noah, oblivious to the truth, greeted Ethan with professionalism and respect, his enthusiasm genuine. Ethan offered a nod of approval, yet his mind lingered on the striking resemblance to someone he had once loved. The days that followed were a careful dance of observation and subtle curiosity. Olivia couldn't know yet, and Noah had no idea, but fate had begun its work. The stage was set and the players were moving into place. A father, unaware of the son sitting across from him, and a mother, trying to keep the secret safe, were about to find their lives entangled in ways none of them could predict. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling every time Noah entered the room. There was something familiar in the way the young man carried himself, a confidence balanced with quiet thoughtfulness, that tugged at a memory buried deep. He found himself watching, studying, comparing Noah's gestures, his expressions, even the slight curve of his smile, to someone he once knew, someone he had loved. Meanwhile, Olivia went about her daily life, unaware that the threads of her past were slowly weaving themselves back into her present. She had agreed, at Maya's gentle insistence, to attend a charity event hosted by Blake Enterprises. It was purely professional, or so she told herself, but a small, stubborn curiosity had crept in. She wondered what Ethan looked like after all these years, what he had become, and whether the years had softened or hardened him. When their paths crossed at the event, a polite smile and a measured greeting passed between them. But beneath the surface, emotions surged, an odd mixture of nostalgia, hesitation, and something tenderly familiar. Ethan felt it too, a quiet warmth, a memory of laughter and stolen moments that had once meant everything. Noah, watching from across the room, felt a strange connection between his mother and the man in the sharp suit, though he couldn't explain it. Something unspoken lingered in the air, a tension neither Olivia nor Ethan could ignore. By the time the event ended, all three had unknowingly taken the first steps toward a tangled future. A future that would challenge secrets, awaken old feelings, and slowly bring them closer to truths neither was ready to face. Some bonds, Ethan realized, are impossible to break, even when you think time and distance have buried them forever. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Noah. Every task, every report the young man handled so effortlessly only deepened the nagging feeling in his chest. There was something about him, something uncannily familiar, that refused to make sense. He found himself asking quiet, careful questions about Noah's family, listening for details he hadn't dared to consider before. Olivia's name never came up, at least not directly, and yet Ethan's instincts whispered a truth he wasn't ready to face. Noah, unaware of the scrutiny, thrived in his new role. He was eager, intelligent, and quick to anticipate Ethan's needs. Ethan watched him mentor interns, organize meetings, and handle high-pressure situations with calm determination. He couldn't deny the pride swelling in him, though he didn't yet understand why. Olivia, meanwhile, noticed subtle changes in Ethan's behavior during the charity event follow-up meetings. He was more attentive, softer somehow, and occasionally distracted as if something in the past had resurfaced. Olivia wondered if he suspected anything about Noah. She hoped not, but her heart skipped every time their eyes met, and she felt the familiar ache of emotions she thought she had buried. Maya, ever the practical friend, urged caution. "Secrets have a way of coming out when you least expect them," she reminded Olivia, her tone gentle but firm. Olivia nodded, gripping her coffee a little tighter. Protecting Noah had always been her priority, and she wasn't about to let the past unravel that. And yet, the more Ethan observed Noah, the more questions lingered in his mind. The resemblance, the gestures, the quiet confidence, it was all too precise to be coincidence. Deep down, Ethan knew the truth was close, though neither he nor Olivia could have guessed just how life-changing the revelation would be. Some truths, it seems, have a way of sneaking up on you when you're least prepared. The charity gala had ended, but the echoes of that evening lingered in Olivia's mind. She hadn't expected the flutter in her chest when Ethan had approached her with a polite smile, nor the warmth in his gaze that seemed to linger longer than necessary. She told herself it was nostalgia, nothing more, but even as she said it, her heart whispered otherwise. Ethan, for his part, couldn't stop replaying their brief conversation. Olivia's laugh, soft and familiar, had a way of piercing through the years of distance he had built around himself. The more he watched her, the more he remembered the woman he had loved, the woman he had let slip through his fingers. Noah, completely unaware of the undercurrents swirling around him, continued his diligent work. Yet even he felt the subtle tension between his mother and the man who, unbeknownst to him, was his father. Sometimes he caught them sharing a glance that lingered a fraction too long, a smile that hinted at memories older than he could imagine. Olivia found herself lingering at work events, partly out of obligation, partly because she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward Ethan. One evening, after a particularly long day, Ethan walked her to her car. The air between them was quiet, heavy with unspoken words. Without thinking, they shared a brief, lingering hug, a simple gesture, yet it carried a weight neither had anticipated. For a moment, it felt as though the years melted away, and the walls they had built around their hearts softened. Both knew the past could not be erased, yet in that hug, there was a promise of something else, possibility, forgiveness, and perhaps even the beginning of love renewed. Some sparks, it seems, refuse to die, no matter how long the fire has been buried. Work had a way of forcing people together, and for Olivia and Ethan, it seemed to conspire in ways neither expected. A new project required Olivia's input, and Ethan insisted she join the team meetings. Olivia hesitated, memories of past arguments and heartache whispering caution. Yet there was an undeniable thrill in being near him again. Noah watched quietly from his desk, absorbed in his tasks but noticing the ease with which Olivia and Ethan now interacted. There was a natural rhythm to their collaboration, a silent understanding that hadn't existed before. Something unspoken passed between them in shared glances and quick, meaningful smiles. Noah couldn't put it into words, but he felt it, the weight of history, the spark of connection, and the warmth of something tenderly familiar. One evening, after a long brainstorming session, Olivia found herself alone with Ethan in the office, sorting through documents. The conversation drifted from business to shared memories, and for a moment the professional barrier softened. When Ethan reached to hand her a folder, their fingers brushed, and instinctively they shared a brief hug, quiet, natural, yet charged with unspoken emotion. Neither spoke, yet both felt the tension release, a fragile bridge forming over years of separation. Olivia left that evening with a mix of exhilaration and caution. She reminded herself of the secret she carried, the fragile balance of protecting Noah while navigating a past she thought she had left behind. Ethan, meanwhile, couldn't stop replaying the hug in his mind. It was simple, yet it meant more than words could capture. A promise of closeness, of trust, and perhaps a hint of the love they had once shared. Sometimes, life has a way of bringing people together in ways you least expect. Through work, through fate, and through quiet, unintended closeness. It started as a casual conversation in Ethan's office, meant to be nothing more than routine paperwork. Yet something in Noah's offhand comment about family history made Ethan pause. He glanced up, heart suddenly hammering. There it was, the detail he had been unconsciously searching for, the missing piece of a puzzle he hadn't realized he was piecing together. "Your mother never mentioned your father?" Ethan asked carefully, keeping his tone neutral. Noah shook his head, eyes wide, oblivious to the storm brewing in the room. She said he's just someone from the past." Ethan's mind raced. The resemblance, the gestures, the quiet confidence, everything fell into place. This was his son. His own flesh and blood. Shock, disbelief, and a surge of emotion collided within him. He had unknowingly mentored his own child, spent days sharing guidance, and yet had no idea. Noah, sensing the intensity in Ethan's gaze, furrowed his brow. "Are you okay?" Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. He could feel his chest tighten, a mix of guilt, awe, and a longing that had nothing to do with work. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out and placed a hand on Noah's shoulder, a simple, grounding gesture. Noah looked up, startled but sensing the warmth and sincerity in Ethan's touch. Meanwhile, Olivia had been anxiously waiting for the evening to end, unaware that the truth was moments away from surfacing. When Ethan called her into the office, the reunion of three hearts became inevitable. There were no words at first, only tears, a long, heartfelt hug, and the silent acknowledgement that their lives had changed forever. Some truths, once revealed, have the power to heal, to unite, and to set the course of the heart toward a love that had waited patiently all along. The days that followed were filled with quiet, tentative steps toward something neither Olivia nor Ethan had expected: family. Noah, still processing the revelation, found himself drawn to Ethan in a way that felt natural, as though a missing piece of his life had finally been found. He watched his father with a mix of awe, curiosity, and that subtle longing to connect, the kind only a child can feel for the parent they never knew. Ethan, for his part, approached every moment with care. He wanted to make up for lost time, to show Noah that he wasn't just a mentor or a figure in the office, but a father, a man who had always loved him in ways he hadn't realized. The first few hugs were tentative, hesitant, but each one grew warmer, longer, and more comforting. Noah began to respond naturally, leaning into the touch, sensing the sincerity and protection that had been missing in his life. Olivia watched them both, a mix of relief and joy washing over her. The secret she had guarded for years no longer needed shielding, and the family she had longed for quietly began to form around her. She joined their dinners, their weekend walks, and their late-night talks, sharing laughter, advice, and stories of the past. The bonds were simple but profound: hugs after long days, small touches of reassurance, and the unspoken understanding that they were no longer alone. Life, they realized, could be messy and unpredictable, but it could also bring the warmth of belonging, of love rediscovered, and of a family united against the world. Sometimes, the heart finds what it has been searching for in the most unexpected places, and sometimes, a simple hug is enough to make everything feel right. The rhythm of their lives had shifted. What had once been distance and silence between Olivia and Ethan now carried warmth, shared responsibility, and quiet laughter. Evenings spent helping Noah with his school projects or sharing stories at the dinner table slowly softened the walls around their hearts. Olivia noticed it first, the way Ethan's glance lingered a moment longer, the way his presence calmed her in ways she hadn't felt in years. Ethan too felt it. The years of pride and hesitation melted whenever Olivia was near. She moved with the same grace, spoke with the same strength, and carried herself with the same quiet humor he had once adored. Their shared history no longer felt like a wound but a foundation, an unspoken promise that second chances were possible. One evening, after a long day of work and family errands, Olivia and Ethan found themselves alone on the porch, watching the city lights twinkle. The air was filled with soft conversation and laughter, and when Ethan gently placed a hand on Olivia's shoulder, it wasn't just comfort, it was a bridge to what had always been waiting. She leaned into him instinctively, their hug lingering, conveying more than words ever could. Noah watched from the doorway for a moment, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. He understood, without needing to say it, that the love his parents had once lost was now returning, stronger, wiser, and gentler. That night, as Olivia and Ethan parted with a soft embrace, the spark between them burned brighter than ever. It was no longer just nostalgia, it was love rekindled, ready to grow alongside the new family they had built together. Sometimes, the heart remembers what the mind tries to forget, and when given the chance, it will always find its way home. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the Hartman Blake household. Olivia watched Ethan help Noah with breakfast, the two of them laughing over a shared joke, and felt a peace she hadn't known in years. The secret that had once weighed so heavily on her chest was no longer a burden. Her son had found his father, and she had found the man she had never truly stopped loving. Ethan turned to her, his eyes soft but steady. "I never thought we'd get this chance," he said quietly, as if afraid to break the fragile magic of the moment. Olivia smiled, feeling the familiar pull in her chest, the warmth of old love and the promise of a new beginning. She stepped closer, letting herself be wrapped in his arms, a hug that spoke of forgiveness, trust, and enduring love. Noah joined them, hesitant at first, then leaning into the embrace, completing the circle. The three of them stood there, holding on to each other, a family finally whole. In that simple moment, there was no past resentment, no lingering regrets, only love, connection, and the quiet joy of belonging. Later that evening, as the city lights flickered outside, Ethan and Olivia shared another tender hug, this one carrying the weight of all they had endured and the promise of forever. The future was theirs to build together, a life filled with laughter, trust, and the simple comforts of being together as a family. Sometimes, life surprises you in the most extraordinary ways. And sometimes all it takes is a hug to remind you that love, real, enduring love, is worth waiting for.